Habina group in Germany, who took a year off after graduating in high school in South Africa to be a teacher working at an organic farm in a small valley surrounded by sky-rising mountains. And after coming back to his hometown in Germany and studying design of communication, hoped that they to melt the artistic side together with the passion for science through design thinking, interaction, as well as cooperation with the City Science Lab of the Hanfen City University at Hamburg and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So Marcel's story looks in Africa, where one chapter ends in the beginning of another one, and only one question is left. How many plants does it take to make the world impactful, and who will be company on this endeavor? We have Dr. Yanis Sipudiris from the Renewable Energy Service in Kenya. Just a second. Dr. Yanis has a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering, Master of Science in Energy, PhD in Solar Energy from the University of Leeds, UK, and has been actively involved with the renewables for over 44 years. He is editor and owner of Climate and Energy Portal. He served at the Public Power Corporation of Greece, developing wind and PV parks, and CEO of PPC Renewables. He is the owner and general manager of RedPro Consultants Greece. He is active since 2018 in Kenya and currently is visiting professor and director at REC, the Renewable Energy and Climate Change Research Center at Technical University of Mombasa. He is the owner and director of RedPro Climate and Energy Consultants Limited Kenya, founder and chairman of Nonprofit Africa, and mentor of ISNAD. We have Peter Rothberger, who is the project and innovation manager in Germany. He works for ECP, the European Center for Power Electronics. ECP represents the power electronics industry in Europe, as well as in Bavaria, Germany. ECP is a networking organization, manages competitive research and organizes training for various power electrical topics. Peter has a master's in science in physics and renewable energy, experience as a lobbyist for renewable energy in Brussels, and experience as a business developer for biomass, CHPs, and energy storage. Last but not least, we have Emmanuel Peng, who is the CEO of Biotech Ghana. Emmanuel is a practitioner in energy and power engineering, specialized in distributed energy resources and integration, promoting purely greenish project development, energy, water, environment, and food nexus. Emmanuel is a professional engineer and member of the IEEE, IET UK, IET Ghana, and the Engineering Council of Ghana. He holds a PhD in power engineering and engineering thermophysics from the University of Guangzhou in China, and a Master in Science from the University of Glasgow, University of South Wales in the UK. I'll start our presentation with Cecilia. So before Cecilia takes over, we have in our public chat our contact details as well. If you do not see our presentation, please click on the bottom right screen icon on your screen to be able to restore presentation. You can leave your questions in the comments so that after the introductory statements by the panelists, I'll be able to address your questions. And Cecilia, please.
Morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to meet everybody. As Svetlana said, we're started in 1998. We're a research hub and think tank. We settled to kind of the research where the industries and energy need in terms of steps, how to take technology, we move energy and then generation, and how specific technologies would be appropriate for local environment. Most of our staff, it comes from, so we're in addition to University of Nairobi, we have Technical University of Kenya, we have Kisii University, and we work with faculty and also graduates from different universities, natural science graduates who are sort of looking for a space in which they can work in a team to get their project moving forward. And then ambulance noise in the okay.
Cecilia, I think your audio is kind of breaking off.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us? Yeah, we can hear
yes,
you, but I had a problem following your. Okay, sure.
So, thank you. To understand, so there's different ways to come at the energy problem. You've heard about the distribution and the access rights. We have mostly chemists, so we're looking at the production side and also looking at how do you reduce toxins and what is it in terms of technology that can improve circularity. We also look at it from a systems perspective. So instead of looking at solving the energy crisis in isolation, how can we solve the waste crisis? How can we solve the soil health crisis? Which avenue in terms of research pathway would lead the better outcome? And I'm a social scientist by training, not a chemist, but there will be something in this. So if you have specific questions, I can forward that to our team. The issue with dump sites, and this is not just in Kenya, this is sort of across Africa, as you have residential communities that are built up and there was no waste management system. Reason for that being, like for example, Nairobi was designed as a Ebenezer Howard green city. And you think that's beautiful until you realize the structural planning of that green city was specifically made to keep poor people and workers out and to yes, it was designed to minimize vehicular traffic, but also in a way that you can't really connect well from one side to the other. So when it comes to decades of building following those formal master plans, you have challenges in terms of try to put them in a centralized system. There'll be challenges in terms of land use rights, access roads, and all of that. So what starts to happen is that people are an informal dump site, which then gets cordoned off, and then it turns into massive problems. And Dandora, there's been multiple entities who have tried to fix this, and you can see there's just a pile of waste. It will take some massive amount of energy in terms of either pyrolysis or other types of interventions. What we're saying is why, instead of trying to fix right now in our capacity, let's look at micro production and intervene in the waste flow before it's there, because we have some urban centers popping up all over the place. Next slide. And this is going to some of what I mentioned. Once it gets to the landfill, there's literally recovery. So no health recovery, no material recovery. You've got a lot of mixed waste, and yes, landfills normally everywhere have limited access rights, but the problem in Kenya is that those tend to then form unexplicable coalitions of those with the access rights that then also prevent from going in and doing mediation to fix. and then have so what you is a situation where it's in a landfill, you have formal sort of machinery or something that affects. So all of that becomes a challenge in terms of the social dynamics and political, like how to get into and solve. So what we're thinking about is looking pyrolysis is one way, but if we think about fuel as a liquid or gas, all we have to do is produce the liquid or gas, and we also have multiple other outputs we can work on. We can create specialty chemicals, and those can become additional products for sale, because initially we know that the fuel price of, like, for example, bioethanol from waste is likely to be higher than regular ethanol. So you develop a production system in which additional revenue from sales of specialty chemical are looking at what you can create from olefins, then begins to offset as you higher commercial activity. And we're not talking of the big centralized ones. You can see on the screen, this is a pretty small. If we start with a 20 liter and then graduate to a 100 liter. These types of reactors in commercial biotechnology. So also the ability to start doing medicines that can come out using one time. And this is the article in which we're starting with. This is PHA. We use PHA because it's easier to develop biodegradable plastics on that route. And when you hear often, you can say, okay, plastics are water repellent, and there you can have surfactants. So the purpose of the biorefinery system is to produce multiple materials. One of those material is a biofuel, but there are also multiple other materials that come out of the process. Next slide. The other, so where we're looking for partners in obviously these models are global, but also the technical knowledge on how to do some of these designs has not been implemented in terms of skills application on the ground. So if we're looking at cloud bioreactor models, it would be nice to have collaboration there, sharing electronic lab, and put everything in a notebook so others can check. Those kinds of behaviors are new to the industry here. Techno-economic modeling. So we have researchers who know research and know how to formulate the basic research. But when you say now, how is the difference between research and scaling? That's going to be a challenge. And how do you do chemistry in the digital world or the IT world? We have partners in terms of the IT side who can bring in and train. But what we were looking at is if they train, then how do you train, for example, if you're using Autodesk Inventor, how do you train the mechanical engineer versus the chemical engineer on to do with Autodesk Inventor? So some structured guidance from that. Next slide. And then in terms of the anticipated output, what we're looking at is skills development. So for a small scale biorefinery plant, let's 5 cohort of individuals these skills will to manage fatty and scale up a small scale brand alone. Then now we start with the low capacity to actually register, and would be a energy sector, and because right now and around there's expertise in thermal. Of course, there's developing expertise in petroleum, but there's no real expertise in this waste to energy biorefinery model. Next slide. And so this is an opening to partners, and we're looking forward to a zero carbon future. And the upper pictures in the Ziba Springs is the type of environment you're supposed to see at Danra instead of the waste that you're seeing right now. So.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. You've got me curious how science technology can help support development of agricultural biotechnologies, but more of that will come later in our question and answer session. Now to Marcel, you'd requested to be, yeah, here you go. Please take the floor.
Yes, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Marcel from Cabena, and we are developing all kinds of projects that help the humankind to proceed in a green manner, in a more unified manner. And our focus is heavily on Africa. And so I always say, because I love technology, and it's true that life forms technology and technology defines life. However, the term was used around 1830s, the term technology. Technology is pretty much anything that we have in our pockets. Our clothes is technology, our smartphones are technology, our language is technology. So technology is everything what emerges after someone being born, how I like to say it. And we saw interesting, so we can always learn from the past, from the history to proceed in the future and learn from it, yeah. So what we can see is that as we develop primitive tools and gathering food and so on, like a couple of years ago, or 1,000 years ago actually, we could reduce our efforts for gathering food, but at the same time, these tools, these very primitive tools, killed about or eliminated completely about 250 megafauna animals in North America alone into extinction. That was 10,000 years ago. So another invention was fire, which extremely changed the ecosystem of plants and the entire continents, but allowed us to take into consideration a broader variety of food, like meat, animal meat, and so on, without the danger of parasites or other diseases. So then again, language emerged and so on. So as we develop more sophisticated technologies, our impact on the climate and Earth gradually increased. So now, so now we're here talking about energy in Africa, and energy as the world's actually all about energy, and energy has a direct impact on climate and climate change. So we are blessed for the last couple of thousands of years that we had a pretty stable climate, right? So, but it's also true that our recent activities contribute a lot in the global warming. So it's now the time to unlock new technologies, to find new clean technologies and bring it and make them fast enough, cheap enough to scale them on a broad market so they can make an impact in a much faster pace. And Africa has a special place not only in my heart but for the world economy. Um, And what we see in Africa, so we all know it, I won't go into detail about that, but we have a huge differences in electricity grid electricity development and all. So the north and south countries in Africa have more sufficient energy supply than than mid Africa. So and really the availability and the low cost access to clean energy is what makes an economy alive and makes a country alive, gives people livelihoods and a bright future, more self-determined future. But what nowadays we see in such countries like Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Kenya, that companies really cannot settle there because there is no sufficient energy grid and no sufficient energy supply, reliable energy supply available. Imagine hospitals when there is an outage or blackout. I've heard stories that doctors do surgeries with candlelights and so on. So, but anyways, this lack of sufficient energy supply means that companies need to maintain their own generators for such situations when there is a blackout, and this means an more expensive business. It can increase the cost of your operating business by 3 to 6 times, and that's a lot for, especially for startups, to settle. So therefore, we decided 8 years ago, Kabena decided to go to Africa and to Kenya to develop renewable energy. So we developed wind and solar energy there, but decided to sell it quite quickly because we heard about a very special, very interesting scenario at Lake Victoria. So Cecilia knows it. I believe Cecilia knows it pretty well. That Lake Victoria is infested with a plant called water hyacinth, and cutting a long story short, with the respect of your time, ladies and gentlemen, the lake is dying and everything that depends on it too. And because there's massive amounts of this plant swimming on top of the lake and depleting dissolved oxygen. So we sold our business to tackle this problem, and now we believe, and I will, and that's why I very like what Cecilia said, that biomass and bio waste is one of the most wonderful sources, because biogas is in my opinion, the most compelling renewable energy source, because solely the fact that you put one resource in and you get multiple resources out. In our case, we feed it with the feedstock as water hyacinth and waste from the food industry, and we produce, so we generate baseload clean energy, organic fertilizer, we purify water, we sell liquefied CO2, so we don't treat CO2 as a waste, but sell it to the food industry. We generate a lot of jobs, a lot of carbon credits, and it's the most compelling biogas power plant in the world. So thank you for your attention at my introduction. Svetlana, do you want to continue, or who will be next here?
Well, I'm next, but without Svetlana, I don't know how we proceed. We start the revolution.
Yeah. Maybe maybe you can just proceed. I believe
Oh, yeah.
Svetlana addressed just the
Marcus
problem
again.
to issue. Yeah.
It's okay, Marcel. Let's wait for Svetlana. Thank you. She must be somewhere.
Yeah, maybe she lost connection or anything.
Can you hear me? Marcus speaking again?
Hello? Yes, we can hear Marcus.
Okay.
We can hear you.
I'm not sure because he's still in. So my suggestion would be if you could just continue with the agenda.
I can, but she has my presentation. She has my presentation, and she's supposed to upload it and show it to you. So because I don't have presentation rights, and last time we tried it, Peter knows, it was a total failure. So that's why Svetlana is very important. And if she's not, then I don't know how.
Okay, one moment. I would need to see that I upload, but that would take a moment.
I can tell stories.
But perhaps you start with what you have in mind, and then in the meantime, I hope that I can show it to you. Okay?
I'll talk more about myself. It's okay. It's my favorite subject anyway. Can you mute Marcel, please?
Oh yes, sorry.
So I'm Yannis Tsipourides. I'm from Greece, and I'm in Athens right now. And I wish I was not. I wish I was in Mombasa, where is my university. But I will be there soon. I'm a consultant, a renewables consultant engineer. I was lucky to be in that business for 44 years. I started my PhD in solar energy in '78, and I'm very proud and very lucky to have been so long in this business. And since 2018, I've been active in Kenya, where recently I'm a professor at the University of Mombasa and also the director of the Renewable Energy and Climate Change Research Center. I think it's going to be very boring if I keep talking about myself. Now it's time to show my, oh yes, the presenter screen is loading. All right, so next slide, please. Thank you. Can we have the next slide? Thank you. So well, when I first was connected to TUM University, I was impressed the way they presented TUM as the only university at sea level. It was a nice media trick, but later on it became more important because now TUM is the first university to go when sea level rises. So we really have to tackle climate change at TUM because of an extra reason than anything else. So what TUM is doing, TUM has decided to really take hold of the situation, create the research center. And our main focus at the center is to serve the community that we live in. And that mainly means provide means for access to clean and affordable energy. Really do a lot of things on energy efficiency and energy saving. Let's just pause for a minute here. If you have a barrel of water which you're trying to fill and the barrel has a lot of holes, you will never fill it unless you stop the holes. So that's what energy efficiency and energy savings do. You fill the holes in your barrel and then you fill it with water, with energy. So energy efficiency and energy saving have a huge role to play in the effort to provide clean energy, and we very often overlook that. Of course, our purpose is to serve the sustainable development of Kenya and of sub-Saharan Africa, and combat climate change, which is really already affecting Africa disproportionately. I was going to say these are our main focus areas, but after listening to Cecilia, and since we already have a biogas demo plant on our side, I'm going to try to connect with the CSTI and see how we can cooperate on biogas, because biogas is a renewable form of renewable energy carrier, and most important, can provide for base load, which is something that solar and wind do not do. So next slide, please. Now, this, sometimes you know things, you know data, you know numbers, but you don't really realize what they mean. When I got this table together, I really realized that things are not, that there is more behind the numbers. More than half of the population of this planet already fulfill their effort to meet the Paris goals. The poor half, but they're already overdoing it actually, because it's less than half of what is what would the emissions be by 2030 is already they meeting that. So it's really the rich top half, and actually the rich 10% that have to be persuaded to lower their emissions if we're to meet the Paris targets. And there is not if, we have to meet the Paris targets, otherwise we're going the wrong direction. So let's keep that in mind when we talk about SDG 7. Next slide, please. This is the situation in for the energy access in the world, and especially sub-Saharan Africa. As you can see, the sub-Saharan Africa area remains the main problem. Over the last decade, actually, it has increased. The number of people who were without access to any energy has increased. And we don't even talk about people who don't have clean cooking conditions at their disposal. So the task is huge. And Luca, in the beginning, really described well the uneven spread of RES installations. It's true. Very little goes to Africa, and even less goes to the middle part. Most of it goes to North Africa or to South Africa. And it's the middle part that hurts. It's the middle part that bleeds. That's where energy is really needed most. So the task is huge, and there is a lot that has to be done. Next slide, please. So there are approximately 600 million poor people in need of energy access, and over 2 billion without clean cooking. In 2050, 25% of global population will be in Africa. You can imagine whether there will be more people without energy access or not. I'll leave that to your imagination and your estimation of the politics of energy, and not only. So I'm emphasizing the word poor because SDG 7 is not about providing clean energy. It's about providing clean, affordable energy. And affordable energy is something that for poor people is not as easy as for the rest of us. And we know where the rest of us, okay? Affordable is defined by their living standards. It's not defined by the aspirations for revenues of the companies who are trying to provide energy solutions to Africa. And this is something that has to happen, but we should have to find a way to really make this work. SDG 7 and the SDGs, they're not just an option, you know, people can have them or not. They're the minimum requirement of life. And we keep ignoring that. I mean, the target is for 2030. I bet you anything I have, we won't meet them by 2030. Already they're talking about 2050, and there's even a new plan for 2070. Of course they won't meet them. Of course, who is funding this institute? Nobody does. So that's one. And SDG 7 is the pillar of the just transition. There is nothing you can do without energy. I should have said that at TUM, we really emphasize on energy access because that really helps the nexus: clean energy, clean water, clean food, health, hygiene. You need energy to provide all that. So, and renewables, of course, are the pillar of clean energy transition. Next slide, please. So, we said that before, okay? The thing is, we have to consider that the poor people who are already doing their best to meet the Paris targets, shouldn't they be rewarded for that? It's just a question. Perhaps in the form of something, let's name it climate financing. Shouldn't the global north give something to the global south for not increasing their emissions and maintain them at 0.4 or 1.5 is the limit? So that's one. Scaling up the energy access to those people through renewables is a win-win also for the North. Imagine if those 700 million people got their energy from fossil fuels. the planet will be toast, and we will be toasted with it. So there are two major directions in which already the global south is assisting the global north and the whole planet to reach the Paris targets. And they deserve some reward for that, because now I come to the major, let me first say that we have no technological problems. Solar energy was there when I was a young man at the age of Marcel. Now it's even going from strength to strength. You can do anything you want with renewables. Technology has given solutions to everything. So we don't have technological issues. What do we have? We have funding issues. We have funding issues because this is what you need to get this to the people. Okay? So there are two major tasks. One is to secure funding for those who do not have access to energy. And secondly, you have to create the enabling environment so that the companies can do this. They won't do it out of charity. They have to get some money for what they provide. So how do we create that? Next slide, please. So regarding the funding, I'm sure everybody knows about the ESG criteria. This is the new thing. It's another form of the old CSR. ESG is there. It's a $30 trillion market already. Well, can we have some of that to go towards meeting SDG 7 and SDGs in general? Climate financing is always elusive in COPs. Even in Glasgow, they said, okay, yes, but then they did not agree. Let's see what will happen in COP27 in Egypt. Climate financing has to happen. $100 billion have been promised since Paris, and they have not been delivered. If that funding arrives, we can do a lot of things in Africa. Africa can do a lot of things in Africa, not us. But what do we need now? We need a regulation where we have to create the enabling environment for the public sector, the private sector, the communities, the government to work together, to cooperate, to co-create the environment in which the companies subsidized. They can build the projects that provide clean energy, clean water, food, health to the rural communities. Poor people do not have money to buy electricity. It's okay to generate, it's okay to transmit, but how do you consume if you don't have money to pay? Even pay as you go, you need money to pay, and then you go. So there are some tools. First of all, the deployment of productive use is a great help because you make people make money through a productive use, and that way they can pay for energy. But all this needs to be placed in a framework, and that's how it will work. So teaching and training is very important. That's where our university comes in. And also we can create locally local manufacturing facilities, very low at the moment. The balance of plant items, some recycling, things can happen. Anything can happen if we really see the problem where it is and look at it in the eyes. I think I've done my piece. Thank you.
Very lively. I like what you've said, that funding and creating an enabling environment are priority to achieving SDG number 7 and pay as you go. Couldn't have said it better. And then Peter is our next panelist. Peter, I'm going to give you the presentation rights to upload the presentation on your end as I set up the camera here on the background. Apologies, I got kicked out of the meeting, but I am back now. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess you can see my screen now. Thank you, Svetlana, for the introduction. Yeah, it's hard to follow after Yanis because he makes a lot of compelling points, and he knows a lot about Africa and the political situation. Me, on the other hand, I know a lot about the technical situation, about power electronics and the situation in Europe, and starting to learn more about Africa every day. Today, I want to give you a short introduction about where I'm coming from, my association and this cluster of power electronics, as well as a project which just started, the European Sustainable Energy Cluster Partnership for Africa. So, good. first I want to start with where I'm coming from here in Bavaria, in Germany. We're a cluster for power electronics on the working on a local level, and I'm responsible for international activities. And then we're also a European network for power electronics with companies and universities and research institutes all over Europe. And what we do is basically the same on both levels. We do pre-competitive joint research for power electronics, so making any kind of energy transformation more efficient, less material heavy, and we train the new engineers and the experienced engineers with events, workshops, and tutorials. And we also do a bit of lobbying and public relations for power electronics. What I'd say interesting for our topic here today is this Sustainable Energy Partnership. So it's a collaboration of several clusters from Europe, mainly from Spain, Italy, France, and Germany. And we've come together to generate some interest in sub-Saharan Africa, to make known the possibilities to invest in renewable energies in Africa and get some local companies involved in Africa. So there's a lot of technology in Europe lying around, and people not knowing what's happening in Africa and what's the possibilities are there. So looking at all the renewable energy technologies, including smart grids, energy storage, and innovative metering, whatever goes along with it. And we have conducted research, and we've selected 5 target countries in sub-Saharan Africa, being Senegal, Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, and Tanzania. And for those countries, we have some in-depth analysis. This market reports that we've generated, and as a next step, we want to present those reports to European companies and to introduce those markets. What else we want to do in the project? It's general, not yet to do live projects in Africa. It's just like the networking part and the information part, and we want to establish cooperation and establish the link between Europe and Africa. So maybe one step or 2 steps behind what most of you guys are doing, but then again we try to address new players that are not yet active. So I guess it's still worthwhile. Okay, that brings me already to my last slide. What we actually build in the next step on June 9. We will have a webinar where we will present these 5 African markets, and we can tell a little more about what we are trying to do. Yes, and then we will have networking meetings every year, and the first one being on 15th of September in France, in Lille, and there both the European companies can go to network, and also we will have some of our African contacts there to make a first connection also in person. Good, that's from my side. Thank you. Back to you, Svetlana.
Thank you very much, Peter. You can also leave the event links links in the public chat for all to follow. Also, panelists, you're more than invited to leave your contact details in the public chat in case someone would like to reach out to you. Some question is not answered during this webinar, they can follow up later. Last but not least, Emmanuel, who is also our board member at the Africa Alliance. Emmanuel is writing a position paper on empowering African communities with access to energy. And so I'm just going to put up the slides now, and then you can start your presentation, Emmanuel.
Thank you, Savannah and Marcus, for welcoming me to this event. That was great presentation from all other panelists, especially Dr. Yunis and Peter. Cecilia also did well, and I think Marcel also gave a very fruitful presentation. That's great. Peter, I'm interested in your project because I have an electronics background and communication. That was my MSc, and I went into power engineering, genetic physics as smart grid application. That's why my area of specialization is into distributed energy resources and integration. And you know, you cannot do well with a clean energy renewable without a power electronics. It plays a very active role, especially with the solar PVs when it comes to band gap effects and its applications and other aspects that impede the transformation or the transition to the clean energy and its industrial application. Yeah, concerning this webinar, I'm going to talk about the energy paradigm in terms of clean energy in Ghana and as a reference to West Africa. If I say I'm going to talk in terms of Ghana and the reference to West Africa, what I mean is the whole West Africa and even Africa, Ghana is having electricity penetration of about 85%. That's for the legacy and grid, that's the transmission and distribution. But honestly, as Dr. Yunis said, it's not affordable. And even the efficiency of it is also another issue here. We may have the transmission lines, everything, and distribution about 85%, which we say that it should be efficient. But the cost of it and also its utilization, not comfortable with the users. Almost every commercial industrial company or even SME need to have a genset, which is predominantly relying on diesel. And yesterday, we had some of the media predicting that Ghana may be importing energy. From where? Because if you are 85% leading in the African context, or you are among your peers, and here is the case, you are having a problem with electricity distribution, then it means it is just a nameplate application, which is not efficient and deliverable to the consumers or the client who needs it. So we need to work it out. When it comes to Sierra Leone, currently we have some partners doing studies over there. They are not even up to 25%. And we can name it and name it. And here is the case, we have the right tools and application to go into it. So why don't we harness it? If you look at the Ghana energy paradigm, we have a profile of industry using a lot of heating and cooling, which most of them are also relying on the same electricity, especially when it comes to the food and agro-processing industry. So here is the case, we have a problem with electricity. Why don't you look at other alternatives which will be affordable, sufficient, and efficient for them in their application? That's why we come into this area. My company that I'm representing, Biotech, is into purely greenage projects. When we talk about greenage projects, we are looking at three thematic areas. That's energy compact development projects, water and waste management in terms of sanitation. Then we come into agriculture, industrial machinery enhancement. These are the key areas, and we have the product and services that we offer with the solutions that we align to them. Of course, you cannot talk about energy in this dispensation without going into EV, that's e-mobility. As I speak right now, yesterday we just had an increase in fossil fuel for diesel and gasoline, which are the main frontiers. And right now, per liter, diesel is going for almost about $1.60 in Ghana. $1.60 per liter of diesel. What industry can break even with this kind of astronomical increase? But they have no choice because they need to move on. And with the African Trade and Liberalization Center being set up in Africa, and Ghana is the headquarters, you can see the effect that comes. That's why we are promoting the clean energy paradigm. And fortunately, and I would say in an advantage manner, we have the EU Tech as coming as a conduit and a means for us to look at it so that we can also bring in all other stakeholders for collaboration and be able to go along with the development that we look for. Of course, Biotech is project development and consultancy. So we identify programs and propose solutions through our technology partners. Ghana, we don't manufacture any technical equipment. We import them. And Germany is being known, or Europe is being known as the panacea for evolving and technologies for advanced applications. So once we are on this platform, we think that we'll be able to come along with the right players and be able to succeed in this paradigm. Dr. Eunice made mention of another critical area, which is also funding. Yes, funding is another major critical area for it, irrespective of anything. Of course, we have other challenges in Africa concerning our energy paradigm, but without the funding, we cannot go along with it. There are other issues like the social culture barrier, which is about the reliance, the liability of the clean energy. Because if they are to be diffused of that mindset, it depends upon how the players will go along with the transformation through funding. But if there is no funding, no matter what a technical or emerging technology you come out with, it will not be successful. So the key players that are coming out, we ask for collaboration for project finance so that some of these things will go along. Of course, when it comes to the right financial regime for payment, once the product is available and is delivering on its own, of course, the payment regimes will guarantee them and there are right framework to govern them. Ghana has a master plan for renewable energy penetration and projections. And even per the target I've said, we don't have even up to 2% asset now in terms of commercial and industrial application. So it's a vast field that we can utilize and leverage on to go along with it. Please, the next slide. Yeah. So these are the areas that I spoke about in terms of the challenges. Or we will look at the planning, execution, and funding of energy projects, which I've talked about. Then energy delivery sufficiency and security. Of course, the renewable energy or the clean energy have its own security in terms of intermittency, impediment, and low variation. But as Dr. Eunice said, it's emerging. So all these things have been taken care of by technology. And Peter, I know for sure, you know, when it comes to the intermittency, and the load variation, your area has a very good command of it, which once we get the collaboration and we can leverage on it and everything will go. So we don't have problem with technology. The problem here is how we can implement it and make it sufficient and available for commercial applications. The enabling environment for transition, policy framework. A lot of policy frameworks are being developed and they are just sitting at the shelves. They need to be dust and move on. But because the main catalyst for it is the funding to promote the technology, they are not there. You don't see the robustness of the policy framework that have been derived and proposed. And I know Kenya had their own blueprint concerning this policy, and Nairobi, a whole lot of countries have some of these things. So we need to get along with it and we'll be able to go along successfully. For business, politics, and legacy regime, of course, the players in the fossil fuel areas, they are there already and they are businessmen. So once they get to know that they are viable areas for Africa, as initially being said about 800 million population. And if you look at the statistics that Dr. Eunice put out there, I'm not going to mention them, but it's clear for you that clean energy is not a bad product that if we promote it, we will lose. So I think we need to go there. When it comes to social, culture, and human challenges, just the liability that we need. And once we go along with it with the right development and implementation, it will be sorted out. It's like the mobile telephony. When it was coming into Africa, that fear of its application and liability wasn't. But now we are using mobile technology for everything. Commerce and everything is going on over in Africa. And it's like a lift-up approach for us, not going into the traditional telephony system, which even mobile phone right now has taken precedence over satellite communication in Africa. And because of it, deployment strategy, I think is going well for us. So benefit of it as I've learned here are enormous for us to go along. Next slide, please. So when you look at it, the areas of application where you can look at it in e-mobility. We have the 4 segmented areas that we can apply the clean energy. E-mobility, energy that's for industrial application and all things, water and agriculture technology transfer. When you look at the e-mobility, currently, with the fossil fuel prices and everything, there is no choice for us than to go into the e-vehicle and other sources of clean energy that can promote our transportation system. It will also enhance commerce and it also enhance agriculture growth. Look at the mechanization of agriculture in Africa. We are relying predominantly on fossil fuel for traction and other applications. So if we can go by clean energy, using them in other applications like the e-vehicle concept, I think we can solve a lot of problems there, and it will promote gender and at the same time youth employment. I'll use the Ghana statistics or information as a data for reference of what I'm presenting. Currently, we have from certificate, diploma, and degree or master's graduates in the country every year, almost about 500,000 graduates. Only 5% can gain employment in the public sector. That one is not even guaranteed. So where should the 95% go for every year? And they are increasing and they are becoming economical threat and political threat and security threat to Ghana and all the African countries. So this is the time for us to wake up with the clean energy. I think Dr. Eunice did well with the statistics that he gave. So in this discussion, I think we are all on the same wavelength, which we need to collaborate, bring in the right collaboration and the partnership to move on with it. Agriculture is the main bone of our survival. And once we go in with the clean energy to cut costs down with other applications, I think we'll be successful in that. Water. Currently in Ghana, we have the small scale mining, which is destroying a lot of water bodies. So now water needs to be processed and refined before we can take it. And we cannot spend so much on energy to process water. So we need to go into clean energy. I know there is some project that are going on. The government of Ghana is in collaboration with GIZ or German government for some partnership to pilot how we can utilize clean energy for some of this. And I think some of us on the UU Tech can come on board, we discuss it, then we see how we can help to make it a holistic approach or a paradigm for the whole African country so that we can solve water problem and also treat the waste that we create, which pollute the environment and is a threat to resilient climate practice. For energy, that's why I said that's the main backbone. And at the center of it all, if you improve energy and water, we have resilient climate action and health and good sanitation promoted. If we're able to promote water and agriculture, we have what we can say sustainable production and consumption and a livelihood and education. Education in this current dispensation doesn't need fiscal infrastructure. It's through technology. I can sit here and have my education or my degrees, whatever it is, from UK or any country that I want, if the right technology is there. So if we have it, why don't we patronize it and make it successful for us? So now with the UU African partnership, through UU Tech, I think we can bring technology transformation and also have the deep tech application applied with what Peter is trying to bring out. Of course, there are a lot of technology evolving and in Germany and Europe that they are not even known in Africa. So if we can form collaborations and bring this to our fold, I think we can go a long way with it. And with Dr. Eunice also center promoting and forming a right collaboration. What we need right now as a critical panacea to our programs is a right collaboration, partnership and to get the right financing regime so that we can go along with whatever we want to unfold. Then the UU Tech mission and vision will be assured to achieve these SDG goals that we set for ourselves. The last slide, please. So with this, I see that the recommendation that I will make against all the discussions that I've made or the proposition for the challenges, the right framework, which we have them, but we need to fine tune them so that they will be feasible in the clean energy transformation, facilitate access to secure funding to ESCO so that they can implement and prioritize. And in this case, we need the right collaboration along with it so that the right regimes will be set up and we can patronize it and make it successful. Now we cannot do away with without security. Cyber physical security are enormous because with the artificial intelligence system and cloud and everything, we need to have a very strong firewall to protect whatever investment that we make. In terms of cyber security now is a major threat to industries than even the physical security. Once we're able to harness the potentials in this area, we can go along. And I think we need to look at that one also critical for whatever we'll be doing. The enable environment for investors and other things. I think once we have the right regime set up, we can go along with. For this, I'll say thank you for giving me the opportunity. And I pray that UU Tech will be sustained and all the projects that we come along with for collaboration will be successful. And at the end of the day, we can give applause to ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Always a pleasure to have you. I'm going to, now it's time for questions and answer. Maybe I first ask some questions and then I'll take some from the floor as well. If you have a question, please, on the upper left hand side of your screen, there's a public chat function. Please post your questions there, post your questions there, and I'll post them to our panelists here. Maybe Cecilia, if you can hear us, if you're still with us, I have a question for you from your presentation. I was really interested in the biotech technologies that you're using to support agriculture. So I wanted to ask, how can, or what science technologies can support the development of agricultural biotechnology? Cecilia?
Thank you, Sven. And then everybody's probably wondering biotech, agriculture, biotechnology, and an energy presentation. As my co-panelists have said, there's so many ways in which that cost of fuel is a barrier to agricultural productivity, but also access to the energy is an enabler. And I'll give you an example. A lot of biotechnology discussion tends to focus around genetic modification. That's a lot of anger and resistance in our experience. However, if we talk about genetic repair and regeneration, to repair the damage done by pollutants. There's so many avenues for it's also good for water filtration. We know it's good for bioplastics, but have we done enough research to find it's good for animal feed? But then how do you take out the heavy metals from the water hyacinth and make it safe so you're not transferring that heavy metal load to the animals and the animal feed? Looking on the power electronic side, we have a lot of unique situations around the lake area. Right now, we have the utility company to set up power poles and generation poles, create energy access. They're installed, they fall down. They're installed, they fall down. Part of it is the loamy soil and sandy conditions. And then also it's a seismic activity, and we also have a lot of flooding. So the question then becomes, what type of power electronic mechanism works well under those conditions and remains affordable, especially when you have also informal settlements. It's kind of scary if you look at sort of what we call the mabati housing. You have houses built with corrugated metal sheet panels, and when that live pole falls on that, you can imagine the risks there. So I think if we look at biotechnology as everybody talks about agriculture in Africa as a low yield activity. At the high activities come out of agriculture in terms of also things like there's a project, International Barcode of Life. You can trace the barcode on fish and make sure that the right fish is going to the right market. There's a lot of quote unquote fake fish, misidentified species being sold. Looking at the risk of spreading germs, or we've seen the zoonosis. How do you track that? Being able to go into a rural area and have the energy to have all the equipment that we need to function in those settings, track the emissions, track the health impacts, track the microbial soil health benefits. That would be a huge benefit. And having partners able to come and say, okay, here's the technology side, here's where we can help show you in international trade, how to use biotechnology really the scale of agricultural output, I think would be helpful. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Cecilia. Sorry, I was just a bit disconnected. And maybe to our next panelist, maybe I can pose a question to Dr. Yanis in the meantime. What do you think about the ongoing geopolitical crisis and acceleration of clean tech energy in Africa? How does it affect Africa's transformation towards clean tech?
The crisis in Ukraine, you mean? Yeah?
Yes.
Did I hear you?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, funny you should mention that, as they say. I'm just reading in the public chat, Pamela is pleading for assistance for pharmaceuticals. They cannot really tender to their patients because they don't have medicine. And I read that health stations in Kenya, they don't even have a fridge to keep medicines. An injection, a COVID injection, where do you keep it? So solar top, fridge, very simple. So let's go back to that. Technology has given all the answers for decades now. People like Peter, they're just improving, they make it a lot better, but the solutions are there. So the thing is how you bring Peter and the biogas cabina, what they do in Victoria, which is really great. How do you bring those people to do that work, but also give them the subsidy, the assistance? They won't do it for free. Nobody does anything for free. And we're not looking for charity. Those people will do it because they will have something to reward them, okay? They don't have to make exorbitant profits, but they have to get paid for their work. The people, the 700 million people that are without access, they cannot pay. So I close that and go to Ukraine. Now suddenly everybody's down on their knees and they're begging everybody else to produce more oil, more gas, and even coal. So the whole climate combat situation is going to go back, going to be delayed. We're going to lose ground on that. And not only that, Ukraine and Russia provide the wheat for a lot of African countries. India has just shut down its exports on wheat. There's going to be hunger in Africa on top of lack of energy access. This is the situation now. We have to move. We just talk here. Of course, there's nothing else we can do in the webinar. But some people have to really act on this. It's coming. We know it's coming. Europe is suffering from energy prices. Petrol is not there. The gas stations in Africa is even worse. So it's a very peculiar situation. Things are not really looking up. Thank you for the question, because it's really, we're talking about renewables and SDG7 as if things are normal. They are not normal. The invasion of Ukraine has created a new situation that nobody knows when it will end. The sooner it will end, the better we can go back to what we were doing. But I'm not sure it's going to end very quickly. So there's not a positive response, but I think things cannot be positive. Things are really bad. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And maybe the last question before I give Jörg the floor to present the 3 certificates is, please, anyone from the panel who can take this up. What are some of the challenges to using only clean tech? Anyone?
Would you mind, Svetlana, if I tie up on the question before?
Okay, sure. Please go ahead.
So because we experienced something very interesting, there's one metal that should be so that you there's one special metal, copper, that really resembles the economic heartbeat because of its wide wide utilization in almost all commercial sectors. So in terms of economic health, because you know the world is although people think deglobalization will stop or will decrease, the world is global. Yes, we here from Germany, Europe want to make change in Africa and participate globally in the economy. So let's take a short glance on copper. So why copper? So the economic health, to really assess it and then move forward, do forward thinking in terms of energy, clean energy, and also in Africa, we should really center around this conflict between Russia and NATO forces. So while temporary truce might come is coming by mid of this year. It will accelerate in a more conflict driven direction in the future. So and it's more about not only Russia and the NATO forces, but Russia, the USA, and China, these 3 global powers. And what we're seeing now is that Russia and China are to establish sort of, some people want to call it the new world, but what comes with it, surely what they will establish is a new economy and a new currency framework where the USA and its allies are not included. So adversity will break out again, maybe late 2022, maybe early 2023. And then what we're going to see is rallies in the metal markets and also in equity markets, but especially in metal markets and copper. And copper is tremendously necessary for electricity, for clean energy. So an electric vehicle needs 5 times more copper. A wind turbine needs tremendously lots amounts of copper, as well as solar, electric grid, batteries. So everything what we connect to clean energy needs a lot of copper. And at the same time, copper mines are depleted. We have very old copper mines. The biggest copper mines are 100 plus year old. And so what we're going to see then later this year, maybe that copper prices will rally back to 10, maybe 11,000 tons a year, tons USD. And then say again, please.
Maybe if we follow up on the public chat as well as Africa Alliance LinkedIn page, which I've left the link on the public chat as well, because now my colleague Jörg would like to present the 3 certificates. So sorry for cutting you short. It's 1 minute to the end of our meeting here, and let's continue this discussion. So Jörg, please.
All right, Svetlana, thank you very much. I'm trying to share my screen, which doesn't work immediately, and but I can also do it without. But I give it one more chance. doesn't work. So I tell you about the tree certificates, which I'm going to send after the webinar, so then you can see them. First of all, thank you very much, dear speakers, dear panelists. I will hand over tree certificates that has been mentioned a couple of times, and that makes me always very proud and happy to share tree certificates. Why is that? On the one hand, I'm managing director of GoBlue Now. We are a climate consulting company, and we are trying to help companies transform themselves into a 1.5 degree compatible version of themselves. On the other hand, I'm the chair of the Climate Action Commission here at EUTech, and obviously both roles are closely related to trees, because trees are closely related to our climate. We need them. So handing over a tree certificate is a big pleasure. Thank you very much again to all of you who have contributed, and I was able to participate, to listen to your lively discussions and your engagement here. Thank you very much. Whoever is interested in learning more about our tree planting program in Africa, or about the kind of services, consulting services GoBlue Now is offering for companies, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to engage into any kind of discussion and question. And having said that, I hand back to you, Svetlana. Thank you very much and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Yeah, 1 minute over. This meeting is closed now. Thank you to our panelists here today for the discussion and the time commitment towards making this meeting successful. We'll be getting an after event post out soon on LinkedIn. Please look out for that. And for our audience, thank you very much for being here. Today, I'll also be sending an after webinar email to gather your views about the webinar here that you've had today. Just to close, and now I think 2 minutes past. Let's close this meeting. Thank you so much.
Goodbye. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Hello, Svetlana.
Yes, Asmat. Asmat, the meeting is
Should
over.
you stop the recording?
Okay, sure.
Should stop the recording?
Stop the recording. Yes, please.
Okay. Okay.
And Asmat,
Okay.
after stopping the recording, I have
Thanks.
a question, okay?
Okay. Please ask a question.
Okay, so there is this Bhagwan Sahay. Is he from your team as well? So there is this Bhagwan Sahay. Is he from your team as well?
Yes. Yeah, he's a new IT guy. So he joined recently. So he came to the webinar. So I was showing how to support webinar, and he was just per support.
Okay, great. Because I had sent him the names of the panelists and those who I wanted to demote to viewer, because I don't know how it works, but sometimes the people who come in early to the webinar room, they get access to the camera and the microphone. So I was a bit worried, but I'm glad that you've clarified that. Thank you.
Yeah. I already promoted all the speakers and the panelists. I find from the task in tree certificates, and then I promoted here. I don't know why George couldn't share this his screen, but I think he was promoted already. Maybe he has some
Yeah,
trouble,
I shared
technical
with
trouble with
I
his
gave him
PC,
the
so he
presenter
couldn't share
rights. I don't know
the
why.
3 certificates.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he couldn't share the 3 certificates as well, because I gave him the
Yeah,
presenter
yeah.
rights. Okay, then I am going to jump out of this meeting because I'm going to the daily call.